Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to look at Rip-Off Comics number 11, though technically this is Rip-Off, the International Journal of Humor and Comic Strip Art. I'm not going to say that unwieldy name every time I talk about this, but that's what they changed the name to at number 11. More importantly, though, they totally changed the format. I don't know if you can tell, but this is now magazine size. Comics Book Joint surmises that, Weirdo had come out, Raw had come out a year or two earlier, and so Rip-Off wanted to kind of compete on that field. Not just be a lowly underground comic, but be a full-fledged magazine. Start off with a Gilbert Shelton cover, illustrating the first chapter of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and the Idiots Abroad, which amazing series, and it's a full color section. So they've definitely done other things other than just up the size of the pages. There's a lot of new features, definitely trying to be more magazine-like. I really like this guy, Byron Werner. This is called The Future is for Squares, and it looks like he just took one of those old DC public service announcements that were running a lot of DC Comics in the 60s, and then kind of collaged it with other weird stuff. And it just has this real Dada sense of humor. Basically, these kids are ne'er-do-wells. They're smoking reefer, looking at porno mags. They see this demon. All the good kids in town are rounded up for their own safety. But then the kids get wise, and they realize that the power of prayer will get rid of all these demons and that they should live a clean life. And basically being square, one might even say it's now hip to be square. And so the kids end up being little goody two-shoes at the end. And this guy says, the future belongs to those who are responsible citizens. And nobody has more on the ball than us modern squares. Let's go listen to some classical music. This is pretty funny stuff. So we have a contents page. Nice, bizarre illustration by Paul Mavrides. Also looks like it's just collaged from some clip art type stuff. But of course, Paul Mavrides makes it very disturbing. So they have these feature pages in the beginning, to make it more magazine-like. Really good logo here. The Rip-Off Review. I believe that's Shelton. Just a really nice little logo. News stories about S. Clay Wilson's art gallery showing. Also, Paul Mavrides and Robert Williams have art gallery shows coming up. Actually, almost all of these are about art gallery shows coming up. Guy Caldwell, he has a show coming up. And I kind of wish I could have gone to these. Sounds fun. And even R. Crumb. He's basically announces that he's retiring from cartooning and magazine editing, and he's going to devote all his time to oil painting, which never happened. It says his paintings are of the neo-ultra-modernist school, sort of cubism as seen by Ernie Bushmiller. So and I think I've seen the art style that they're talking about. Hercrum has a few strips that are very bizarre, angular, cubist type looking drawings. Of course, it's Art Crumb, so he does it great. It looks really sharp. Here's an article about Greg Irons and his tattooing career. I guess a few years ago, he became a tattoo artist. This is written by Paul Mavrides. And we see photos, not the best photos, unfortunately, of Greg Irons' tattoo art. We have a public service page from the Church of the Subgenius, written by High Genius Poobah. Subgenius Poobah, Ivan Stang. And just, if you like Subgenius stuff, it's pretty funny. And it's pretending to be a warning against the Church of the Subgenius. And talking about how they're this evil cult. And they have lots of evil machinations in play. And, we should fight them. Here's an article about Knockabout Comics, the English underground. They were raided by the police. Their comic books were considered obscene. And Gilbert Shelton wrote this informative article about, the battle for freedom of speech and when it comes to underground comics, because this happened all throughout my childhood and throughout the 80s. Comic stores got busted, distributors got busted for having naughty comic books. So this is just one other example. This is really nice. We get some of Dave Sheridan's pencil art. Really beautiful stuff. I mean, Dave Sheridan, that guy's an amazing illustrator. But the reason why they're showing these off is because he just passed at the time of this publication. Died very young. He lived to be 40. Pretty sad. Once again, cancer, like a lot of people. Has a nice little obituary for him. And also Joe E. Brown Jr. just passed away. He's the guy who helps Gilbert Shelton on a lot of his scripts for like Wonder Warthog. And yeah, he's done some fabulous Fairy Freak Brothers as well. He was a writer, pretty much just for Gilbert Shelton though. And I guess he did other stuff. As you can see, it's a pretty paltry obituary. I guess the guy didn't do that much. So here we have basically the Rip-Off Comics now is a section of this magazine. So it even gets its own cover. And this is by Gilbert Shelton, I'm pretty sure. And we see Frappington Wildebeest IV, the managing editor of Rip-Off Comics. And now we have an editorial from Frappington with this really amazing, bizarre-looking, doctored, I think there's some photo element in there, or it's just Dave Sheridan, I'm sorry, Paul Mavrides being a fucking genius, but it looks really disturbing. So, of course, this editorial is just talking about the changes in Rip-Off and how it's going to be different. But Rip-Off Comics itself is pretty much the same. We start off with a half-page Fat Freddy's cat strip. This Fat Freddy's cat has bulimia in this. He's on a bulimia diet. And now we have Chapter 4 of Wonder Warthog and the Battle of the Titans, written by Gilbert Shelton, Tony Bell, and Joe Brown, and drawn by Gilbert Shelton and Tony Bell. So when last we left off, our four hogs are trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the world. The crime's running rampant in Motherlode, USA. And they visit the police chief, who is just shooting up heroin and obviously has this harem of chickens. It's implied that they're his special friends. And they're trying to get information from him. They're like, who's the kingpin behind all this? And the chief of police is like, they'll kill me if I tell you. So they basically say, okay, we're going to do this the hard way. Wonder Warthog throws him like a mile. And he basically says, you got like 30 seconds to tell us the name. And if you do, Paranoid Punk Pig here, who's really fast, he's like the Flash, he'll catch you. So he gives up the name as he's about to land. He says, Lefty and Louie. And he gives the address. And then Paranoid Punk Pig misses him. He says, I said I was good at running. I never said I could catch. So now they're gonna go see Lefty and Louie. Of course, there's lots of detours to the plot where Gilbert Shelton wants to fit in a funny gag. And Wonder Warthog says, okay, so this disgusting mess that was once the chief of police, this basically pile of gore, could you snatch its soul with your soul snatcher gun? And maybe there's still a little residual soul in there. And the pig from the future fucks up. I guess he's got the widescreen setting on, and it gets all these people in the crowd, and we just see them all float up like angels. See how different this stuff looks than like Fabulous Fairy Freak Brothers or anything else that Gilbert Shelton draws. Like Tony Bell really, changes the art. I kind of like it. It's just this very classic cartoony style. So, of course, Wonder Warthog and his friends, they always have to stop to eat something. They're always hungry. So they go to this restaurant, and they order all these hamburgers. But the pig from the future just orders one biscuit and then uses his gun to turn it into like a turkey. So it was this kind of elaborate, actually a little overly elaborate gag for like 3 pages of arguing with the guy. You know, he's trying to charge him for a turkey dinner, and he says, I just bought a biscuit. So he says, okay, I'll pay you back. And so he turns a whole plate of biscuits into turkeys, which I guess the guy can sell. So, yeah, kind of the plot gets a little lost there. So they go to Lefty and Louie's hideout. They got these bodyguards there. They basically threaten them, say, if you know what's good for you, get the hell out of here. And Wonder Warthog just mauls them. Pretty gory. Shelton really gets gory sometimes, even though it's a comedy. And then once again, you know, they're just like, hey, for fun, let's have a competition. Let's see who can throw these, whatever remains of these guys into this pond and hit these ducks. So now we have a couple pages of them just some zany hijinks, you know, trying to throw these gory remains into the duck pond. They keep missing. And then Wonder Warthog flings his. Looks like he flung it too strongly. Because he's like, oh shit, that's going into the stratosphere. But then the pig from the future says, not to worry, I haven't had a shot like this in centuries. And he shoots it right over the duck pond, which causes the pile of the body parts to land right in the center of the ducks. So now back at the warehouse, in the plush upstairs offices, we see Lefty and Louie. And now our 4 pigs barge in. Wonder Warthog changes into Filbert Desinex. And, you know, because he's a reporter. So I guess they're going to try it the nice way first, instead of just ripping their guts out. He basically says, I'm with the news. Who are these girls? Why aren't they in school? And he's going to question them. And that's, unfortunately, the conclusion for this issue of Chapter 4. I believe next issue we'll have Chapter 5, and that's the finale. So this is an interesting change in the magazine. Instead of having a section of, like, cartoonists of the world who will focus on a country, now these great cartoonists, international cartoonists, are just in the bulk of the comic. They still have a comics of the world, cartoons of the world section, but now it's almost like half classic underground guys and half great international artists. For example, we start off with The Taxi Driver by Martí, this great Spanish cartoonist, who, as you can readily tell, is obviously influenced by Chester Gould's Dick Tracy. And this stuff is great. If you like Martí, it's just so, I love the dichotomy of the way it's drawn in this kind of classic style, but it's just really violent. And to be honest, I guess Dick Tracy's were supposedly pretty violent. I've never really read much early Dick Tracy, but these are downright gory sometimes. So we see this guy gets lucky at the bingo palace, wins a lot of money. As he leaves, 2 little thieves notice how happy he is. It's like, oh, that guy probably won a lot of money. Follow his cab on your motorped. Because this guy, I believe his name's Tony. Tony gets a cab, and it's our protagonist, the taxi driver. And Juan Perez is the guy, the thief, following on his little scooter. So this character, the taxi driver, is very interesting. He just seems like a super upbeat, kind of innocent. And he's just like, where to, sir? Like something from an old 40s movie, you know? And eventually they slow down. The cabbie has to slow down for a red light. And Juan gets off of his scooter, jumps in the back seat, roughs up Tony, and puts a knife to his gut. and says, give me everything in your pockets. He also threatens the cabbie. And the cabbie's just sweating and like terrified, it looks like. But we hear him think to himself, I can't spring the trap quite yet. So it's kind of interesting because this guy just seems like a total civilian, but there's more to him than meets the eye. So he tells the cabbie to get a move on, keep driving, and then he kicks Tony out of the car. It looks like Tony cracks his neck. He's dead. Then he puts the knife back up to the cabbie's throat, and we see the cabbie just getting almost like he's about to Hulk out. And he says, I'll show you. And he hits a switch, and it makes this barrier totally crunch his arm to the ceiling of the car. And he's stuck and in pain. And then he pulls the car to a stop, grabs this like iron bar, and then opens up the back door and just crack, crack, crack. He pretty much beats him to death. There's the panel of the aftermath. And then he brings, I guess he's not dead, sorry. He brings him to the police station. The police thank him and say, we're going to give you a certificate of gratitude. And then the cabbie, after all his violence, just says, ooh, offering myself a rest. I'm knocking off for the rest of my shift. Our taxi driver cooperates with the law. That's how it ends. So this is, I believe, the same character that was in Marty's famous graphic novel, The Cabbie. I think it's called The Cabbie, right? And, but I could be wrong. This might be like kind of like a dry run for it. But I just love this character, how he's just this total, almost like a little Abner or something. He's just this sweet guy, but he's also like a crazed vigilante. Once again, we have another international artist. This guy was seen in the French cartoonist section about 2 issues ago. His name's Charlie Schlingo. This guy's great. I never saw Charlie Schlingo's work before that section, and I definitely want more. Look at this, just beautiful, fun cartooning. It's just it's delightful. It's great. And this one, I guess Stinkney is this very corrupt police chief. So they bring in the suspect, and they're slapping him around, and then the lieutenants and the deputies get involved, and they start beating the shit out of him. And then the guy says, okay, stop, I'll talk. I didn't have anything to do with it at all. Talking at last, nothing to do with it. Then we have no further need for you. And they kick him out the back door. And Stinkney's very proud of their work. Another case handled with aplomb, my boys. And then this one guy runs up and says, Chief, here's a flower I picked for you myself. I don't know why. That's just the capper to this great cartoon. It's just so odd. Yeah, that's Charlie Schlingo. So now we have Hal S. Robbins. I'm sorry, Paul Mavrides. With Hal S. Robbins? I get confused because Dino Boy is sometimes a collaboration. Sorry I didn't look that up. Actually, it's not going to take it that long to go. It is Paul Mavrides solo. And I believe this might have been reprinted, I think it was, in that new comics anthology that we looked at a month ago or so. And just great high surrealism from Paul Mavrides. Kind of using a different style than he normally uses. Much more simple, a lot less lines, but so good. I love all of Paul Mavrides' styles, but this is a really great style. Now we have another international artist, Riser. And this is just a goofy gag. Kid says, hey, Papa, where do babies come from? From inside bottles of wine. And he drinks a bunch of wine, and then it makes him all horny. So he grabs his wife's ass, and they go upstairs. So that's the gag. That's where babies come from. Liquor is the lubricant of love, as they say. And now we have Frank Crankcase's Time Machine by Fulbert Sturgeon. Just one page this time. Kind of continues where we left off, I guess. Because I don't know if you guys remember the last episode. It says, to be continued or not. But I guess Fulbert Sturgeon thought he had one more, gag in him. And the art is very different. Very, I don't know. I really like it. Kind of stripped down, but really good stuff. And just like that panel there, it doesn't look very Fulbert Sturgeon-y to me. I mean, you can kind of tell it's him, but it's a very different style. In this one, he's thinking about using his time machine again, but he's scared because last time he ended up in the middle of outer space. So he sends his dog, Ping. So I guess those Dorman's doggy strips, that dog is named Ping. So I guess they're pretty much autobiographical. So Frank Crankcase is probably the owner of Dorman's doggy. Wait, his name is not Dorman, though. Sorry, I'm confused. I don't know why both of these dogs are called Ping. Because Frank Crankcase is supposed to be a much more closer analogy to Fulbert Sturgeon. Almost like his alter ego when he does comics. He sends the dog back to ancient Rome. The dog comes back very angry. And it's kind of insubstantial. But do like the art. So this is a really nice thing that they have now. The Fabulous Freak Brothers and Idiots Abroad, Chapter 1. Full color, slick paper. This is super nice. This might be why Ripoff Comics ended after number 12 for a long time. This might have bankrupted them. This is just some gorgeous stuff. These were reprinted in Fabulous Freak Brothers number 8, which we looked at last year. The whole saga. But, you know, it was comic book size. And I don't know if the colors, I can't remember if the colors sang this well. Because this is on slick, nice paper. So you could have full color separations. I remember the color being pretty damn good in those comics, though. Considering it was newsprint. So I'll just kind of cursorily go over this since we looked at this a year ago. But the Freak Brothers decided to go to Colombia where they can get all the coke they want cheap. But this is really nice stuff. I just wish Ripoff continued with a beautiful 8-page color section in every issue. Of course, Gilbert Shelton can't help but take detours to the story. Because a bunch of the story is just them getting to the airport, having to take public transportation, almost getting knifed by a gang. And I don't know if this was a thing in the early 80s, because I didn't fly then. I didn't fly till like 1985. It was the first time I ever flew on a plane. But they say that all the airlines have shut down or gone bankrupt. So basically, airports are just malls now. People go there to shop and to drink and eat. So I don't know if that was a thing. But this is the airport, just crazy. And of course, it's the Fabulous Freak Brothers, so they all end up getting on the wrong plane. One's heading to Mecca. One's heading to Scotland. And it looks like Phineas. Not Phineas. God damn it, what's his name? The mustachioed one. He's the only one who's heading to Colombia. But it's like on some shady secret flight. Franklin, that's his name. So there you go for that. Really great. Probably one of the better Fabulous Freak Brothers stories. And seeing it in color is really nice too. Sorry, I had to take a water break. So now we have Alice Robbins. This is great. I love this. A Dinosaur Trail romance. Very much set up like an old romance comic with the splash panel that sets up the situation. And it starts in Levittown, 1958. And these little kids are like, hey, Pop, tell us some of your war stories. So this seems to be like some alternate reality where World War II was fought against dinosaurs. And the father's recounting his heroic tales fighting these beasts with his platoon. Very much like the War That Time Forgot from DC Comics. The daughter, though, she's like, I don't want to hear about that kind of stuff. She says, hey, oh, I'm sorry, this is an uncle. This is their uncle. So she says, hey, Aunt Betsy, do you have any stories? She says, not war stories. And she begins to tell her tale. So she says that she went out to a dude ranch during the war. the Lazy Trilobite Dude Ranch. And as soon as she got there, she met Roy, this cyclopean-looking dude. And it was kind of love at first sight. And it seems like he is kind of smitten with her. And he's showing around the ranch. Of course, there's dinosaurs on this ranch instead of cows. But then her whole world caves in around her because this woman shows up. Dale Space. It's Roy's girlfriend. So I guess Roy does this a lot, so she's used to it. She's like, how would you just grow up, you pitiful lughead? You and your little tourists. But I guess she's Roy's girlfriend, so she's just confident enough to be like, run along. Me and Roy are going out. But as the days and weeks progress, Roy hangs out more and more with Aunt Betsy. Well, Betsy at the time. And one day they're all riding together. Dale and Betsy and Roy. And he says, hey, I want to check out this Lost Valley. Apparently it's an old legend that there's a Lost Valley in these parts. So they go down there. And there's these giant pigosaurs. He calls them artiodactyls. And I guess he's only got time to save one. And he grabs Betsy and lets her girlfriend be eaten by these monsters. And then he says, I couldn't have left you behind. Would you be my wife? And she agrees. But then, of course, maybe that wasn't her husband at the beginning. It doesn't matter. I love this last panel of him weirdly looking at her while they're kissing. This is very Mac White-like to me. I would not be surprised if a young Mac White read this comic and was like, I'm going to base all my stories on this kind of weird Western craziness. This is just, in fact, Mac White does have a cyclopean cowboy character. But this is some terrific stuff. And I also don't want to take away anything from Mac White because I love everything he does. But this is excellent. Now we have The Fall of Empire, translated from French, La Chute de l'Empire. I know I said that wrong. Really nice logo for that. And this is just a one-page little political satire. And we see basically the EU, you know, they're just like, yeah, the common market's getting stronger. Pretty soon, Europe will totally be unified. And they've got all these grand plans. Kind of, it seems like they're out of touch of reality. They're just these, like, you know, huge, powerful bureaucrats planning the future of all of Europe. And they're really just loving it. They're just like, this is going to be great. But then the doorman says, okay, you guys got to go. Get out of here. And they're like, how dare you talk to us like that? And, you know, we're European functionaries. And he's like, sorry, Europe no longer exists. Your countries don't either. All the autonomous have won. You know, like the Basques and all the countries that want their independence. It happened all at once. So now Europe is like 200 countries. And these guys are out of a job. And they don't even know where to go. Because there's so many borders and so many countries. They don't even know how to get home. Oh, this is great seeing Oat Willie again. I love Oat Willie. It's not like they're the best comics ever made, but he's just such a bizarre character. A guy who rides around in a bucket of oats with his feet just drenched in oats and oatmeal. And this is just a goofy gag. And he gets a turkey dinner. He cooks it, takes it outside. By the way, I know this is just a small thing, but look at the crazed architecture of this house. It's almost as if like you're tripping balls while you're looking at it. It's just wiggly and wobbly. I like that. Then he whistles, and all these turkeys come to eat their turkey dinner. I gotta admit, I kind of think that's cute. It's pretty dumb, but it's also kind of funny. So now we have two introductions for our Cartoonist of the Netherlands section. Dutch cartoonist Evert Gerrits. And here's a little illustration from Joost Swarte. And this is really funny. He's a really funny writer. Just talking about the background of what it was like to live in the Netherlands in the 60s and 70s. I guess they were very rich because they sold oil. I guess the Netherlands had a lot of oil to sell. Then that dried up. So now he's talking about like now, current days, everyone's poor. It's not the heyday anymore. And then Gilbert Shelton writes his introduction. And it's much more like authoritative, just giving you information. Here's a little Peter Pontiac drawing. And they continue onto this page. Gilbert Shelton's actually keeps continuing to the back of the magazine. And now we have Swarte, probably the kingpin of Netherlands cartooning. Now, we just looked at this comic a month ago. I started reading this and I was like, why does this seem so familiar? And I'm like, oh, this was in that new comics anthology, which we just looked at. And great little strip, The Adventures of Hergé 50 years ago. And it's just a little anecdote, I believe, maybe a true anecdote from Hergé's life, where he was flying in to deliver something to the magazine he worked on. And he asked to see the pilot's cabin. And I guess he was such a curious young man that he started grabbing buttons and saying, hey, what does this button do? And almost made the plane crash. And then he comes to the offices of the magazine where he's going to deliver the thing. And whatever. Like I said, I already went over it. But it's kind of fun. And just, I love Drew Swart's art so much. Every panel's perfect in this. Beautiful stuff. This is really great. This is weather permitting. And this is a team up between Ever Gerrits and I think his name's Peter Smeets. And it says that they wrote and drew this together. So I don't know how the art is broken down. But either way, it looks not very Ever Gerritsy. That guy draws very like funny animal cartooniness. But maybe he was just trying to draw straight. But I have a feeling a lot of this drawing is more Peter Smeets. This is a weird little story. I love it. This kind of captain of an air crew in the war. And he's hanging out with this little buddy Klex. This Klex guy seems to be just like a goofy little loser. And Ocker, the captain, leaves the bar and basically goes to Klex's girlfriend's place. Meanwhile, Klex is defending Ocker. Someone's dissing him and he says, you can't talk like that about Ocker. He comes home, finds Ocker having sex with his girlfriend, and he basically pulls rank and says, you're lucky I don't put you on report for opening a door without knocking. And it's just like, and he's so drunk and just kind of such a beta guy that he's just like, oh, yes, sir. Sorry about that. He's not even mad that he had sex with his girlfriend. So the next day they're on a bombing mission. Turns out that Ocker's a traitor. And he drops the bombs in the wrong spot. And he basically says, jump out of the plane or I'll shoot you. And Krex does. And his last words are, that's just not fair. And meanwhile, his girlfriend is happily canoodling with this other woman, Marimba. So poor Krex. He was one of life's losers. Now we have this is really interesting for me because I'm a big fan of Cowboy Hank by Kamagurka and Seal. So this is a strip from, I guess, late 70s, early 80s by Kamagurka. I don't know if this is before he hooked up with Seal or maybe he just wanted to do something solo. Very different than Cowboy Hank. Not only the art style, which I really like. This is great cartooning. It looks very French to me, this kind of drawing. But it's also, the humor seems different. It's not as dada. This is almost like a little satirical gag where this guy says, hey, boss, you wanted to talk to me? And he hands him boxing gloves. And while the boss is asking him for sales figures, which aren't good, he just keeps beating the crap out of him and chewing him out. So I guess it's some commentary, on whatever. This one, very kind of, it looks like before its time, because this is the early 80s. And I guess some artists were drawing like this, kind of influenced like new wave graphics. But this is Pete Panty and Co. There are these two characters. And they're just a bunch of, ne'er-do-wells, just wanting some kicks. And I guess one of them kicks a can into this woman's butt. And her husband's standing right there, and he says, I'm going to have to basically do something about that. And he slugs the dark-haired one. Hopefully I'll get his name soon. So they move on, and they say, hey, let's go to this porno theater. This art is so unique, well, at the time. But this is very interesting art, the style. So they go to this porn theater. They see some woman that they knew. It almost implies that maybe one of them had a date with her. And the dark-haired one once again goes up. And his way of making a move is to say, hey, bop a rebop, shoo bop, do bam, which I don't think that would work with anyone. And this woman and her two friends get up and just start throwing their shoes at him and yelling at him. Like, you goddamn fucking, we can't even watch a movie in peace without you sleazy guys hitting on us. Fuck you. So they run out of the theater. They go to a bar to get a drink. Yeah, the more I look at it, I kind of like this art a lot. This is just so stripped down, but really interesting. And then, once again, through some misunderstanding, the dark-haired guy gets slugged again. So that's the running gag, is that no matter, usually the other guy causes the problem, but then the dark-haired one always gets punched. So once again, at the end, he's punched. And then they see a newspaper guy, and he's saying, read all about it. He's basically announcing all the things that they got into tonight. Like riot breaks out at a porn theater, fist fight over a woman, and they don't even realize that it's their stories. So the blonde tries to just steal the newspaper, and he kind of swats him. So the newspaper man punches once again the dark-haired guy. And they read of all these stories, and they'd have no clue that it's about them. And they're like, man, it seems like we miss out on all the action. This is by Ben Jansen, by the way. So here's one of my favorite Netherlands cartoonists, Pete Pontiac. Love his stuff. Totally reminds me of like Hunt Emerson, almost mixed with Robert Williams. Like way more detail. It's got that like dark, like tons of ink everywhere. But also kind of reminds me of Hunt Emerson, just really fun cartooning. This is Go-Go and Gaga in Fools in a Babylon. So I guess these were recurring characters. This logo's outstanding. Look at that. So I take it that Go-Go's a ska guy. He's a rude boy, and Gaga's a punk. So Go-Go says, hey, I got 2 tickets for Prince Duppy. And Gaga, even though he's not as much into reggae, says, he decides to go. And we just see them walking down these Amsterdam streets, just like Gaga yelling at this Christian, one of those Bible thumpers. Then he starts chewing out some hippies, making fun of them. And then this drug dealer guy, he actually says something, he says racist shit to him. But I guess he's just a crazy punk. And then they make it to the show. And it seems like the only good kind words he has is about the Jamaicans. They know what fun is. Pogo, pogo. And it's interesting, we see in the background, in the crowd, is Juiced Swart's character, who I can't remember his name right now, Jopo, or whatever his name is. I thought that was kind of fun. But I love his art so much. This is just really good stuff. Now we have Sharing the Wealth by Wim, I think it's pronounced Wim Stevenhagen. Once again, never saw this guy before. I love this cartooning. Great funny animal cartooning. And this is also kind of about race. And we see these 3 guys playing poker, and 2 of them are talking about all this racist shit, like, black people. You know what the secret is? Just if you stare at a black, you stare them down, they won't dare do anything. So this other, this ibis-looking guy, he's just like, oh, shit, that sounds scary. So he gets on a trolley, and he sees this black guy. And he won't keep his eyes off of him. He's like, I'm going to follow my friend's advice. And because he's doing that, he loses his ticket, has to buy another one. And then it's a very crowded trolley. But the whole time he's keeping his eye on that black guy. And then when the trolley unloads its passengers, the black guy hasn't taken anything from him, but every other customer, because he was so intent on looking at the black guy, that they all robbed him blind. And this woman even has his necktie, and he's buck naked. Really good stuff. I love this cartooning. This guy's really interesting. It looks like someone that would be like a late 80s, like in Snake Eyes or something, or one of Glenn Head's anthologies. It's by a guy named Arno. And I think I might have seen Arno before. It sounds familiar. But look at this interesting dark style. It's like, I don't know if it's scratchboard, but whatever it is, it's pretty unique. We see this kid, he lights a bottle rocket, it goes right into his eyeball, and it looks like his head explodes in a bunch of fireworks. And so in anger, he kicks the bottle. And the bottle says, as he's getting his ass kicked, he says, who is the underdog again? The little guy, of course. Very odd strip. But man, I want to definitely see more of this guy. So now we have Everett Garrett's. Now this is what Everett Garrett's almost always looks like. I've seen a bunch of his stuff in undergrounds, and it's just very a funny animal cartooning type, very old-timey, goofy style. And this is his character, Jan Sailors. So he's got an itchy butt, so he decides to go to the doctor. The doctor looks at his butt. He says, you have 1 day to live. And, of course, he's devastated. But then he says, okay, I got no time to waste. He goes to this girl he's kind of been dating. And in his memory, he says, yeah, I think, I know we weren't going to sleep together before we got married, but this is an emergency. So he goes to his girlfriend and basically says, you got to sleep with me now. I only have 24 hours. And, of course, she's just like, you never mentioned marriage before. What the hell are you talking about? And then she basically kicks him out of her place. There's a vase in his head. Says, liar, you men are all alike. So he decides to bust out his savings. He's got a piggy bank. He's like, yeah, I'm going to die tomorrow. Might as well use my savings. I'm going to get a prostitute. I want to have sex before I die. So he goes to the prostitute, has sex with her. The whole time he's thinking about Susie, his girlfriend. And when he opens up the piggy bank, there's a note from, I don't know if it's his sister. She says, Dear John, I have borrowed your money for a while. Oh, it's his father, sorry. I'll pay you back at the end of the month. So now he gets kicked out of there. She throws the piggy bank after him. And then he figures, well, there's one thing I really want to do. I want to tell off my boss after all these years. So he goes into the office, does just that. Of course, the boss says, you're fired, sociopath, and throws a typewriter after him. I like this. All these units end exactly the same way. So then he's waiting all night long. He's just like, well, I'll just sit here, wait to die. And he says, this is taking a long time to die. So he goes to visit his doctor's house in the middle of the night. And he says, oh, Mr. Sailors, I have good news for you. I confused your chart with someone else's. You're not sick. Just bathe more often. And, of course, Everett Garrett draws him doing the classic shock fall. I wonder if there's an actual word for that. The feet, only the feet visible as someone falls out of the panel. This is a very odd strip. It's by a guy named Harry Buckings. Titul and Titula. So they're basically two different strips. And we see this guy Titul, who's like, they keep saying there's only 35 years left to live. I don't know if he's just talking about, ecological collapse, or this is a different world where they know that the world's going to end in 35 years. Because he actually keeps saying it, and other people say it, as if it's a totally known fact. So he says, to hell with my career. I'm going to spend the rest of my years making love, doing whatever the hell I want. He goes to get a prostitute, goes to get a fancy steak dinner, and, of course, he's broke now. But he's drunk as hell, and he sees his friend at the park, and his friend says, "Isn't this crazy, Tituel? Everyone knows they got 35 years left to live, but they're just walking around as if nothing's changed. You know, acting like assholes with their mouths all drawn up tight." This guy's really good. I love that panel right there. So the next day, Tituel's like, "Oh, that was a lot of fun, but I'm totally broke. So I guess it's back to work for 35 more years." Now this is Tituela. Man, look at this great logo, where he draws all these wanton women making out the logo. That is pretty great. This one I don't really understand at all. It's it almost reminds me of Winsor McKay, where the art doesn't, but this woman I think is Tituela. She just walks around in her panties, pretty sexy. And this older couple are saying, "Can I borrow a corkscrew?" And she leaves the water running while she's looking for this corkscrew. Then these black guys walk in. I don't know what their point is. It seems like at one point they have a little poodle running through a flaming hoop. I don't know why. But then this is when it becomes more like a Little Nemo. She leaves the water running and it starts filling up the apartment. And pretty soon those guys are just swimming around in it, the black guys. And she still can't find the corkscrew. The guy's wife is getting angry at him, saying, "What are you, some sort of corkscrew pervert? Why do you need one anyway?" Which is just an odd question, odd accusation. And then there's a great panel here. We see the water storming out of her windows onto the street below. And then it appears that it's totally flooded the whole city. And we see those three black guys it looks like they're in a giant shoe floating away. "We are going where the action is, and that is a long way from here." And Tituela is still looking for the corkscrew amongst her floating debris. Very strange, very great. I just love bizarro stuff like that. But it really does has this Little Nemo feel to it. Here's the continuation of Gilbert Shelton's thing about the Netherlands. And then we have these little strips from Bob van den Born, Professor Pie. Now, these are from like the 60s, I believe. I think he was maybe the 50s even. And really like this guy's style, really good. And they're just little gaggy strips. They're kind of odd, you know. Humor's changed. Like, look at this one. This kid's got one of those pop-up things. Pop Goes the Weasel. It's supposed to scare you. But Professor Pie isn't scared, but everyone in the city is running in terror. And it's just such great cartooning. I love it's a weird gag. These people are smoking at a fancy party, and he reaches into his little case and takes out a piece of hay, like as if he's a farmer. That's the level of humor we're looking at here. But just for the drawing, it's really nice. So then we have a letters to the editor, and I think some of these are real, but all of them are very goofy. Even the ones that are real, people are obviously writing and trying to be funny, you know. And we have a little strip from Palmavrides, which I think we've seen before. This is really just an ad for the Last Gasp catalog. But it's, once again, Palmavrides using clip art and kind of collaging it together. Oh, then we have an ad for the Lowbrow of Robert Williams, which Ripoff just put out. 16 full-color plates. That's lame. I want to see Robert Williams painting some black and white. So there you go, guys. I didn't even mention, though, I did want to say about this cover, I was a little disappointed. It's not a bad design, but I was just loving those comic size issues. Every cover just looks so good to me. The logos were great. I loved seeing all the characters in the strips. And I didn't even know what the hell's going on with this logo. It's very odd. I suspect Palmavrides. It's like some weird photocopies collaged together to spell ripoff. But a damn good issue, and I'm really digging the fact that they're bringing in more international artists. Because to be honest, I'd much rather see a comic by Martí or Swarte than Dave Sheridan's The Nerds, So I like this change, and thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.